Welcome to the Rosenfeld Review. Lou Rosenfeld here. My guest today is Katie Hansen, Senior UX Research Manager at Thumbtack, and she is not only a speaker at Advancing Research 2025 coming up in March, but you are giving 2 talks, Katie, in one day, which I think makes you the record holder of all the Rosenfeld conferences we've ever done. 2 talks. So you must have a lot to say.
I suppose so. I'm excited to be a groundbreaker.
Well, I'm excited to have you to talk about the talks. You have a background, a PhD, if I understand it, in social psychology. So fill that in for us a little bit. There's a journey there, social psychology to the stage at advancing research by way of some interesting stops. Fill us in. How'd you get here?
Sure thing. So my journey into research started, as you mentioned, with a PhD in social psychology at Princeton, where I focused on unconscious bias. So how things we're not, even aware of shape our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior. That's something I can discuss at length, should you be interested. But that academic foundation taught me how to use various research methods to uncover insights about human behavior and psychology. And so for the past roughly decade, I've been applying those methods in the tech industry, working at companies like Etsy, Instagram, Facebook, and now Thumbtack. And each of those roles have really been about using research to solve complex problems, and to help teams make smarter decisions.
Wait a minute. All problems are complex. At least any problem anyone is dealing with at the moment is complex, right? So what's the special kind of complexity about these types of problems that you work on?
Oh goodness, I feel like I maybe did I shoot myself in the foot saying complex?
Nah, no, no. I'm just, I mean, but look, maybe not how they are uniquely complex, but well, what's the sort of thread in the kind of problems that you work on?
I mean, I think the tricky thing about being a psychologist and about being a user researcher is that the subject of your research are people. And people are often irrational or they act in ways you don't expect. And so being able to guide product teams, engineers, designers into building successful products relies on people, like researchers, getting into the why behind people are behaving the way that they do. And that can be pretty complicated.
So we have another PhD holder on the program, Amy Bucher, who actually wrote our book Engaged, and her background is in behavioral science.
Mhm.
So how do these 2 areas, first of all, compare and contrast? Are they overlap quite a bit? Are they basically the same thing, but different academic programs brand them differently?
I mean, social psychology is behavioral science, as are things like behavioral economics, sociology, etc. From the limited chats I've had with Amy, I believe her background leans more qualitative, while mine leans more quantitative. So in academia, I was doing experimental research, either maybe survey-based online or in the lab, with someone in front of a computer, going through, whatever experiment I invented.
Got it. So you have this background that's obviously academic, PhD. That's about as academic as you can get, and you're working in outside of academia, places like Etsy and Facebook and Thumbtack, as you mentioned. Those are big places. They can be universes unto themselves. They generate research, but I gotta imagine there's still a challenging transition to go from an academic background to a business setting. And yet you probably bring some things that those business settings are totally unused to. Why don't you talk a little bit about how it plays for you to be a PhD in these types of settings?
Yeah, it's a tricky transition to make. When you're looking for that first industry job, you're sort of simultaneously underqualified or underexperienced and overqualified
Mm.
for any job you see, and you're kind of a risk for people to take on if they've never worked with PhDs before. I think some of the difficulty is in the the speed of the research. Academic research moves pretty slowly. I ran a number of studies related to unconscious bias over, the span of years. Whereas, in industry, when I was, an IC researcher, and a half, I was probably doing 6 studies, much faster turnaround. So learning to be able to do things at that pace. And then also, getting, I guess, away from just I guess, answering questions out of pure, I don't know, curiosity into human behavior. In academia, you have some sort of intuition about humans and you can go find out whether or not you're right. And it turns out that's not that valuable always in industry. So it's about being able to pursue questions that will have impact on, the business and the stakeholders around you versus ones that are just interesting to know.
So do you end up having to spend more time on others' questions rather than your own? Is that part of the challenge? A product manager or a C-level?
I think it's less about their questions and more about their goals and like understanding what it is what decisions they need to make, and then deriving the questions that need to be answered to inform those decisions.
Okay. So you also mentioned that the time involved is different. The cadence is much faster in a business setting, especially that you work in mostly from a quant background. Do you find that you are forced, in a sense, to sacrifice statistical significance in your work, or do you feel like you can still get at numbers that make you comfortable with your results?
I say it's actually easier to get at numbers in industry than it was in academia, especially working for, a company like Instagram or Facebook, where the number of users is so large.
Mm-hmm.
And I could, if I had wanted to, launch a study and have thousands of responses by the next day. Whereas in academia, you need, if you're doing an online survey, you would need to have some sort of grant funding to pay people to take it. And you're trying to, find some sort of panel. Or if it was in-person research and you're doing one person at a time, that was, 30 minutes, an hour of your time just to get one participant.
So you certainly in those settings you have access to many, 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 many more users. And you don't have to get the funding, right? I mean, you're set up. That's not even an issue. You're not like out there beating the bushes for grants and whatnot. That's interesting. Okay. Well, so you're doing 2 talks. And one is experimental research techniques for deep psychology-driven insights. And the other is finding the unknown in the known, harnessing meta-analysis and literature review, which are arguably 2 different things, but you're doing those in one talk. So we have 2 to 3 kind of big topics to dig into that you're going to be covering at Advancing Research in March. Let's take a quick break. And then we're going to dive right into those. Everyone, you're listening to the Rosenfeld Review. We'll be right back.
Research shouldn't be complicated. It should be powerful, flexible, and efficient. That's why leading teams choose DScout. With DScout, you get all the insights you need via one easy-to-use platform. Whether it's live interviews or unmoderated usability testing or longitudinal diary studies, DScout has you covered. And with their industry-leading participant pool and powerful AI analysis capabilities, running powerful research has never been easier. Are you ready to level up your research? Discover DScout today by visiting dscout.com.
Welcome back to the Rosenfeld Review. I'm talking with Katie Hansen about her work coming from a social psychology background and bringing her knowledge to the Advancing Research 2025 program. Folks, if you are at all interested in research, you should be coming to the conference. It's virtual, March 11th through 13th. So you, yes, can buy a ticket at the absolute last second, but you should, because we've got an amazing 3-day program packed full of not only really smart people like Katie, but topics that really are designed collectively to help you move forward with your career as a researcher. We're pretty bullish on research, and we think it's going to get better, and you're going to have to be ready. And talks like Katie's are just what the doctor ordered. We think it's going to future-proof your career, kind of give you a target for where to be over the next 5 years, which is not insignificant. So I hope you'll give this conference a chance if you haven't been before. If you have, I think you'll know it's always a great event every year, but I think this year's program is especially special. Please check it out. Okay. But Katie, so you're giving 2 talks. Let's start maybe with an overview of experimental research techniques for deep psychology-driven insights. I'm guessing you're going to draw heavily on what you know from your academic background in social psychology. Is that a fair assumption?
That's a very fair assumption. So that talk is going to focus on how experimental methods can uncover psychological drivers behind user behavior. And I'll walk through in the talk how to design a survey experiment. They're my favorite research method. And so I'm definitely excited to help kind of open the door to doing so for other researchers.
Now, these types of methods, are they more quant? Are they geared toward environments that have millions of users? Or are some of the methods that you're going to cover more appropriate for people doing more qual work and maybe in different types of environments, smaller audiences, or in-person moderated type of work as well?
So for this talk in specific, it is more quant focused. You don't need to have, millions or even thousands of responses in order to do them, but there is an element of statistical analysis involved. So you need to have a sufficient sample size to be able to reach statistical significance.
Got it. Actually, you're making me think of a couple of our authors, Caroline Jarrett and Aaron Weigel, who we had at a Rosenverse session last, I think a few weeks back. Caroline is the author of our book on surveys, and Aaron is the author of our book on experimentation, and they had a great kind of back and forth. So we'll have to put a link to that in the show notes. If you want to check it out, you might find it interesting too. So let's think a little bit about these methods and their origin, at least for you in an academic setting. Are you finding that there's still kind of a uphill battle to take what's coming from these academic settings and repurposing, or maybe better put, repositioning them in environments like the ones that you work in? Is it seamless, or are you like having to do as much socialization of the methods as actually doing the methods themselves?
Yeah, I mean, in the case of survey experiments, I think it's definitely been a bit of an uphill battle. Generally, in industry, when people think of experiments, they think of A/B testing,
Mm-hmm.
the gold standard of whether or not something should be shipped. And sort of why would you do a seemingly less rigorous version of that by doing an experiment through a survey? But the scale at which you can experiment in a survey is so much more than an A/B test. Like if A/B test, you're comparing, new feature change versus old feature, and does it significantly improve whatever metric we like? But in a survey experiment, since you're not actually building whatever it is, you're not launching it into a live product, you can test 20 versions of things you might want to do and see what causal impact those have on self-reported measures like attitudes.
So you're not actually working with a prototype. You're like, how are you getting information about those 20 different options via survey? Is it more people self-reporting on what they think would work, or?
And I'll go into a really in-depth example in my talk with my current work at Thumbtack. But what I have done historically is work with a product designer to create static mocks
Mm-hmm.
where you really carefully manipulate only one thing across conditions. So we have a control condition, and then it's about having people react to those mocks in whatever, for whatever construct we're interested in measuring. So it is a self-report
Mm-hmm.
variable. But by having a control condition and then randomizing people into the conditions where we're manipulating whatever it is we're interested in, we're able to infer causality by comparing those that were in the control versus those in the experimental conditions.
Now, does that mean you are actually, in a way, doing let's say you have 20 things to test, you're doing 19 or 20 A/B tests inside a survey. So you're testing, 19 or 20 possibilities that are in mock form against, let's say, the current way it performs. But you have so many people to test with that, got it. Okay. So it's basically the same survey, but you have different versions of it for your different options.
Exactly. And so we can do it much faster, much more efficiently than doing 20 A/B tests. And I really like to use this sort of survey experiment to prioritize what to A/B test in product, because you are investing so many resources when you actually build the experience. So instead of needing to do 20 A/B tests, we can do 20 experimental conditions in a survey experiment, take the top, 3 most promising ones, and then turn those into A/B tests.
Got it. Is there one tool that you couldn't live without that helps you manage those surveys?
I would say Qualtrics is my survey platform
That's
of
my
choice
guess.
for experiment. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. So, folks, if you are already thinking about a tool or using a tool like Qualtrics, this is certainly going to be a really good way to get value out of it. And even if you're not, this is a really important approach that can go way beyond A/B testing in a traditional sense. A lot of people complain about A/B testing because, it's like, well, both are crap. So, why? But if you can get to, 20 options, now you're really learning something that can go way beyond the narrow remit of 2. Well, that's great. So that's one talk. And we haven't talked about the other one, which is finding the unknown in the known. Sounds very Rumsfeldian. Harnessing meta-analysis and literature review. So this is like, if I understand what you're talking about, you're saying, hey, everyone, a lot of research has been done. You don't have to reinvent it if you bother to look for other published research and learn from it. Am I close?
Yes, you are. And it not even just other published research, but other research internal to your company. But so this talk is really about using meta-analysis and literature reviews to sort of tap into the vast potential of existing research, which for me is often internal research, whichever company I'm working at, but it could also be more traditional desk research of what is publicly available. And I think these are really great methods because they help researchers uncover patterns across studies, save time and resources by not doing a new sort of primary research study, and they can help add depth to their findings. And so in that talk, I'm planning to share practical tips to make those tools more approachable for people and more actionable.
So I'm going to guess that research repository is a important concept here. Like, is there one, and what do you do if there isn't?
Yes, your life is going to be much, much easier if your team has a research repository.
I just talked with Jake Burkhart earlier today, and his book Stop Wasting Research. It's all about how to actually leverage research and research repositories, and it's going to be coming out in June. So I'm really happy that that's on your radar as well, and you're going to help get it on some other folks' radars.
Absolutely. I manage our research ops team in addition to our research team, and so I'll definitely make sure we get a copy of that.
Awesome. So I've heard of meta-analyses before, and I'm always like wondering, why aren't they just called analyses? So what is a meta-analysis in the official definition?
Yeah, well, I guess it's a meta-analysis because it's an analysis of other analyses. So basically, it's a quantitative synthesis of multiple studies to identify patterns. So in this sense, it's very similar to a literature review, where you're more sort of like qualitatively looking for themes across studies, but in a meta-analysis, you're actually doing it statistically.
And where do you find analyses to meta-analyze?
So, I mean, I think meta-analyses they're much more common in academia where research is publicly available, and there you would just go out and search for studies that match the theme of what you're looking for. Internally, I think you do need to have a certain wealth of quantitative research in order to conduct a meta-analysis because you're going to need sort of similar measurement or measurement of the same construct across studies.
So it's like they almost have to share some benchmark. Okay. If there was one source for doing a lit review and meta-analysis, whether it's a journal or a database, what's indispensable for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, an internal research repository is going to be number one. But I realize not everyone has that. And if you're looking outside of your own company, I think Google Scholar is really great.
Okay. That's great to know. Wow. Well, we've actually covered quite a bit. I feel very enlightened. I'd love to ask you more, if we had more time, about where AI fits in all this. As it is, today is, if you're listening, folks, it's DeepSeek Day. it's the day the stock market went down in the U.S. quite a bit because of the announcement of what's going on with DeepSeek, the Chinese company that says, oh, you don't really need all those fancy chips that are embargoed anyway. So it's an interesting day, but we'll have to save that part of the conversation maybe for the conference. So I want to remind everyone that Katie is speaking at Advancing Research. March 11th through 13th are the dates. Katie, you're speaking on the 12th, both talks. I hope you pace yourself well that day. Really appreciate it. And really appreciate your sharing your ideas with us today. Before we wrap up, we got a ritual. And that is that my guests have to bring a gift. What'd you bring us?
My gift is the podcast Hidden Brain, which is one of my favorites. If you're interested in psychology and human behavior, the podcast interviews often academic social psychologists, cognitive psychologists, etc., about the research, but makes it really relevant and applicable to everyday life. And I think it'd be a great form of inspiration for researchers.
It's a great suggestion. I've really enjoyed that podcast myself. And like you, I love what he does. I can't remember the host's name.
Vedothan, I think.
Yeah, but there's to me, this is why Advancing Research is a great conference, because we have a lot of people who are bringing ideas and experience and perspective from academia and making it work in a business setting, just like you. So thanks for doing that. I think that's how we start really building our careers out to future-proof them for years to come. Looking forward to doing that at Advancing Research. Katie Hansen, thanks again for joining us today on the Rosenfeld Review.
Thanks, Lou. Happy to be here.
Thanks for listening to the Rosenfeld Review, brought to you by Rosenfeld Media. If you like our show, please subscribe and review it on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast platform. I'd love it if you tell a friend to have a listen, and check out our website for over 100 podcasts with other interesting people. You'll find them all at rosenfeldreview.com.